Hello. I'm in the car today for 7 hours with my mutt-mutt. He's having a little snooze, and we're on our way to Vermont from Western New York. And I'm crossing like 4 state lines this week. I'm going to New Hampshire, I'm going to Maine, and then I'm going back to New Hampshire, back to Vermont, back to New York, and then back to Pittsburgh. So in for a lot of time in the car, and we're at the full moon in Aquarius. And I believe I'm going to be channeling downloads while I'm driving, because that just tends to happen to me when I'm in the car by myself for a long time. So I'm taking this video as an introductory message to what I believe will be a compilation of videos of messages. I don't know what I'm going to title it because I don't know what's going to come through. But yeah, stay tuned throughout this video for the energy update that I have on this day, the 19th of August. Hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so first message I have is actually coming to me from a dream from last night. I was with a spirit guide or a wise teacher of some kind in the astral, and they were showing me a demonstration very similar to how I was shown demonstrations of instant manifestation or instant collapse and demanifestation in the astral about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. That was like a long session. This was more of like a brief dream, and I was with one of the same energies from that time, and they were showing me the energetic quantum nature of fear being an illusion, because that falls pretty flat to the conscious mind in our third dimensional world. Like, okay, like, you know, it's like fear is an illusion. It's one of those like, I don't know if colloquialism is the right word, but it just sounds like something out of like Harry Potter, or like, you know, it's like Star Wars. It's like love is the only truth. That type of, it's a little bit hard to understand the mechanics of why it is. And so I was being shown that, and I love the analogy that I was exposed to probably about a year ago. I was on a similar drive at a similar time of the year, listening to a podcast with Matthias DeStefano, and he was talking about how when a crowded room with a bunch of clutter is illuminated and we realize all of the contents, it's a gradual realization, but the clutter was already there. It's the realization and the acknowledgement of its presence that gives us a sensation of feeling suffocated, wanting change, wanting to change it, being able to change it, but also having to understand with like a deep compassion for the self and the situation and the whole, you know, interconnectedly, the whole of our collective manifestation, that there's a fact of its presence. You know, there is clutter to be cleared out. That's sort of what's happening in the world, right? We're acknowledging the density of the manifestation, and a lot of people waking up to it at this point look at it in horror, or there's like horrific plateaus to, I think, realizing it. But the lesson and the teaching that I was given in my dream was casting shadows. It was like we were in a hall and we were taking different pockets of my own fear-based thinking that still lingers in my conscious mind, that's preventing me from ascending fully into the next chapter of my own evolution. And then we would stand a different way in relation to that fear to let the light in, and the light, like a beam of sun, would dissolve the darkness, the pocket of darkness. All of fear and stuck energy that prevents you from feeling free and moving forward is just something that hasn't been touched yet by truth. Because truth is unity and love, and that again falls a little bit flat to the conscious mind of like, okay, truth is unity and love, like, got it. But what does it mean, you know, mechanically? And so, like, shadow play, right? There was something, and this actually ties into levels of manipulation and the use of magic with, you know, screens and light and devices and the collective trance. Things that are kept in pockets of fear. Like, I always see articles coming out, circulated in the mainstream media around like, we don't understand human consciousness. What is it? You know, like, scientists don't know. And like, you know, that's just this swirling pocket of illusion where we're not encouraged to find out or know. We're not going to be told this is the revelation from within that comes from within, when people start to disconnect from the energy zapping forces, the energy sucking forces, and the sexual energy distortion that keeps people very leaking their life force energy into other outlets, preventing us from seeing higher vantage points. And I was talking about this in the video that I posted yesterday, where it's like, it's hard to remember that if you are speaking on something with our same old English language, but the person that you're talking to does not have the framework to support the idea, they don't have a shelf in their bookcase for that idea. It doesn't matter what words you put it into. It's like a does not compute thing, because you can be speaking on something that's very high level and only have so many words to talk about it. And if you know about energetic transmissions or the nature of energy healing, the words are actually not important. It's the same reason why people who do conscious manifestation with journaling and affirmations, you know that it's not just being like, I am powerful, I am wealthy and abundant, I am this or that. It doesn't matter what you write. It doesn't matter. Yes, words are very powerful and you should pay attention to what you affirm or not, but it's all about what the vibration change within you becomes by way of affirming certain things or choosing not to affirm certain things. The language is just, this filtered down utterances of bridging the gap between what we think we can't transmit to one another without words, but we can, and we always have transmitted to one another without words. And okay, so back to the series of dreams last night. And I remember waking up, I woke up all throughout the night. I didn't sleep very well, but I actually slept very deeply for the times that I was asleep. My biggest sleep was between 12 and 3 a.m. and then I slept again from 3 to 5, and then I slept again from 5 to 7:30. So this was between the midnight and the 3 a.m. sleep. And I was being asked, remember this, remember this, remember this. Remember that whenever you come up against, no matter where it comes from, if it's the projection of somebody else, there's just this long-standing tradition of gaslighting people who carry a torch around spiritual truth because of the collective, unacknowledged fear of the persecution of the witch, right? Or stepping out of bounds, or like occult stuff, and this just like deeper subconscious fear that keeps people from questing or like seeking higher knowledge in these fields and all of that. Whether or not a lot of people would acknowledge that, that's where I think it comes from. Like this immediate rejection. Doesn't matter if it comes from that or if it's something coming up within me, either from a past life or from like some perceived obstacle. And I forget my ability as a creator, as part of the same energetic balance that is facing this obstacle, to be able to see it as, like my own arm or my own leg, and move my body and adjust to let the ray of sun, let the light of truth, let that transmutation to catch on this surface, on this object. The object or the surface being the shield or the mask that is keeping the integration from occurring. There is no reason to hold on to fear. Every single, now I'm seeing slats in a maze that a rat would do to get a piece of cheese. You can manipulate that. You can put new slats in to direct the path of the rat. But the nature of this reality and all of the energy of interconnectedness is that once you get into unraveling fears, you'll be removing slats from this maze, letting the light in, the light of truth, to illuminate what you previously thought was impossible or improbable or not doable or whatever. And there's always going to be another slat or another surface that you can see the fear projected upon. It's just, it's just two energies, right? And the more you remove the slats, the deeper you go, there's going to be more surfaces to pivot your relationship to these surfaces so that you can allow for the light to hit them. And in the vision, I was constantly being asked to like step aside, like get out of my own way. It was very literal, and it was like a workshop. And I had a physical body, even though I was in a consciousness space. Hang on, my dad is calling me. Okay, resuming. So yeah, it was like an exercise of realizing that as I positioned myself, almost like it was using the embodiment, like me having a body in this consciousness exercise in my dream last night. The fact that I had a body was reminding me that the body is also an illusion. Now that's like really high level and out of grasp for a lot of people, because it's like, that's all we, like, you've lost me. The body's not an illusion. Like my body's not an illusion. Like I get that. But there are higher dimensional existences, parallel streams of consciousness, right, where we actually don't have to have a body to still connect with our consciousness. And people who have had out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences or do astral travel or even had a lucid dream, you'll get that. Because in a lucid dream, the most exhilarating thing is to be able to feel your consciousness and use it as the tool that renders your vessel. You can shapeshift, you can be an animal, you can be anything, and you can experience anything, and it transcends, you know, having to like physically walk there. You can be wherever, you can do whatever. That's what a lucid dream is. And I think there's a lot of confusion about that too, because there's different levels of lucidity where you can change certain things but not all of it. That's not a true full lucid dream. But anyway, it was like a metaphor. My body was a metaphor for reminding me that the essence of my consciousness and the ability of my consciousness transcends what we've been taught we can do in a physical body. So the body was a stand-in for the limits of the mind. And when I was being asked to get out of the way, to move my body, basically like open up, like if I was standing with my shoulders and my hips squared off to the target, squared off to the thing in front of me, I was being asked to like drop the left foot back on a diagonal or drop the right foot back on a diagonal, to open my body up, to remove myself, or the metaphor of the mind, to remove my mind, my consciousness, how I think in the third dimension and how we have to think in order to be human and have lives in the third dimensional physical reality. I was being asked to remove that from letting the light hit off of the objects and illuminate them, because when that interaction is allowed to take place, the fear dissolves because the shadow dissipates. And you do realize that all it was the lack of allowing the light to come in. And so if we look at the state of the world from that standpoint, what we're seeing is that there is just carefully knit cobwebs over a lot of every facet.
Speed check reported ahead on New York State Thruway East.
Okay. A lot of how we've been crafted into these like societal systems and the larger paradigms that govern global human activity have been created with those partitions so that the light doesn't illuminate. And being asked to remove the conscious mind feels like going crazy. Feels like going crazy for people. So there's a lot of, but right, the only thing to fear is fear itself. There's something very interesting within that, because I think there's some, like, we're prone to spiraling. We're prone to spiraling in these big illuminating energies. There's a speed check, so I put my phone down. And there's something from the reading connected to what I'm talking about right now, the reading I did yesterday around being on this wheel, you know, not getting seasick, allowing yourself to sort of unwind in the way that your life is asking you to right now. And again, I said this in the reading yesterday, it may not feel good, you know? It's always easier to hear somebody say, like, say you got a tarot card reading and they were like, you know, the wheel is turning and you're, whatever the message would be. If we were anticipating good things and in a good space and in like a high vibrational space, we would like that. But when we're in a low space, it's harder to hear like, it's fine, it's turning, because we don't like having to tolerate the uncomfortable passages that is the manifestation, is the way that we feel when things are getting churned up. I'm seeing silt at the bottom of the ocean. All of this stuff, you know, it's a little bit like dusty, sandy. But like we want, or a snow globe, right? This stuff is getting kicked up. And it's what I always say about like Three of Swords energy. Just because we don't acknowledge something doesn't mean it's not present, doesn't mean it's not there. Clearing out energy. Excuse me. And something that I was thinking about the other night after I shared what I shared in that video yesterday, and I was like, just purging in the way of tears, and like, I'm just such a crier. I love crying. It feels so good. It feels so amazing to just cry. And there's nothing wrong with it, you know? And then like, I return to stasis and I'm like better for it. There's no shame in feeling your feelings. I don't know who needs to hear that today, but I was also thinking about how much my mind, I was in a metacognitive space and trying to bring my spirit guides in to help me, because I was in I was hurting. I was not feeling good about a lot of different stuff, and I was asking for higher guidance to help me manage that. And I was understanding, I completely got derailed there. It was like a big shield came in through my thoughts. Oh yes. Okay, it's coming back. Give me a sec. Okay, so my 3D mind was sorting through kind of the ins and outs, like what somebody said to me or what somebody might think of me based on how I felt their energy, and having to walk away from, as an empath, having to walk away from conversations with people who are judging me, very openly judging me, and maybe they don't even mean to, or no.
In about 10 miles, take exit 33 toward New York Route 365 and Verona.
I don't know if that'll be picked up on the video, but I'm pausing when my GPS cuts in, so sorry about that. And okay. So it's like, that's what we do after we have some type of encounter that takes us from being in one vibrational space that we like to being a little bit lower vibrationally. We kind of mull through it and we're like, why is that? Like, the skilled empath has energetic boundaries up and just releases that energy and does not integrate it because it's not theirs. But the narratives and the mental ability to kind of sift through all these stories and figure out why people feel this way and what I can do about it, which is an illusion. You can't change anybody's perception of you. And it's also an illusion that somebody's right or wrong. The people who I perceive as against me or not accepting of me are exactly where they're meant to be. I don't know their path. I'm not on their path. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And my challenge is when people don't give me the same favor of saying, I accept where you are and I allow it. And I also accept where I am and allow it. And I try my best to do that for the people that I encounter, regardless of how different we may be. And so it can be hard if that's not given to you in return and all you get is judgment. But anyway, I was sifting through that, I was thinking through it, and it was like, you have to elevate the way that you're seeing it into that space where the light hits all parts of it. And it's like, what is the fear really? What is the fear? Because under that fear, there's another slat, and you remove it, and there's more fear or a concern, and you remove it, and you can do that infinitely until you remove all of them, and it's gone. And that's the connection. That's the benefit of, I think, self-reflection and meditation and being alone, because there's a lot, again, back to the silt and stuff being turned up. There's a lot that's coming up, and I think a lot of people are going to be clamoring to validate, we're social beings, humans. We validate our realities like sounding boards bouncing off of each other's realities. And I've never been a person who likes to do that because I like to take guidance from within. And I've often found that my reality doesn't really align with the reality that other people are, the consensus reality that most people agree upon. And the only way for me to come back to that place where I'm like, no, I feel very sound in what I believe in based on what I'm experiencing and the guided action that I'm meant to take as a result of that. But I don't come across that unless I seal myself off and protect my energy and allow myself to let go of the stuff that I've picked up from the energy of other people and the density. And it's honestly, like, it's wild. I'm not going to be like, I'm a public servant, but like, I do so much energetic work for people who don't even know. They won't even care. They don't even believe in it. And yet I know that I walk away with this heavy stuff. And what's fascinating is that a lot of the time people think that heaviness is like coming from me if it's like the mirror of being illuminated, holding a space of light that puts in direct contrast, their beliefs, and it's not comfortable. So there's just something strange about that. And I'm putting this into words because of the way that the past couple days have helped me do clearings, right? And so in the stream last night with this spirit guide showing me, it was basically like, all you have to do is kind of step out of the way. Remember that the way that your mind is perceiving these situations, like the higher vantage point is always easy. I can always be like, yeah, I get it. I see it. I'm cool. I'm fine. I'm taking care of myself. I'm solid. I'm healthy. I know what I want and I know what I'm doing. And that's more than a lot of people can say, whether or not they would admit that. But then the actual nuances of day-to-day conversations and interacting with people and trying to be honest, not trying to, I've been advised by spiritual people, like, just don't talk, just completely, separate your worlds. That's fine. But there's something about my purpose where I know I'm meant to bridge worlds, and I'm meant to be able to stand in it and let it change people, or let them deal with their discomfort and not have to silence myself because I've done it for so long. So anyway, the message here is remove your, physical body. Like, again, with the visualization, if you're the thing, if you can feel the sun at your back, but you want it to touch the object that's in front of you, you have to move yourself out of the way in order to let that clean passage of photonic radiance move through the space and clear out these little pockets of shadowed energy. All that shadowed energy wants to do is be acknowledged, and the remedy will always be the same: to let the light shine upon it, to dispel that density. It has collected there by no fault of anybody or any reason other than this twisting tale of our, you know, our own becoming. It's just that's all too much to put into words right now. Yeah, chapter 1 in my car ride. Okay, all right, I stopped, I got more gas, but I'm tacking onto that message because I don't think it was totally complete. And what it is, in summary, basically the gist of the message is that when you get out of the way of like your logical mind and your attachment to how things are going during interactions or situations or ongoing dynamics that you do not like, and you feel...
Use the right lane to take the exit onto East Dominic Street and New York Route 365 East toward Barneveld.
If you feel like they're holding you back, or there's a reason outside of yourself why you can't move forward in your truth, you have to be able to get your mind and your body, in a metaphorical sense, out of the way so that the light of love can illuminate the situation. And oftentimes we have resistance to doing this because we feel like
Take the exit.
Like it's a tit for tat human type ego-based situation where if somebody's not giving me the benefit of the doubt, why should I give them mine? Or if somebody...
In 3/4 of a mile, turn right onto East Dominic Street toward Barneveld.
If somebody's not respecting me, why should I owe them my respect? And it's like, because you're the change that you want to see. You're the one who interrupts that pattern and creates a new energy within that dynamic. You're the one who's able to riddle through the discomfort of two parties being at odds, and you bring in the energy that smooths over all evils, which is love. And it's interesting because it's truly a frequency based, like, I see it as science.
Use the right lane to turn onto East Dominic Street toward Barneveld.
She's gonna remind me in like 2 seconds to turn right onto Barneveld or whatever, so I'll be interrupted again, but that's just the summary of it. And it's so relieving and it's so easy, right? It's so easy. It's much easier.
Turn right.
Much easier said than done, but also much easier done than we think. And that again is the key word, than we think. When you try to make sense of it by thinking, it's not gonna make sense. It does not make sense.
In about
it
2
transcends
miles, turn
what
left
makes
onto
sense.
New Floyd Road.
That doesn't mean that it's not proper action. A lot of what quote unquote makes sense only makes sense in relation to all of these other false structures. And the more that they wibble and wobble and wave, I'm seeing all this flexible material. I'm also seeing like those metal poles that have...
Stay in the left lane.
Multiple joints, and like the flexion of those poles that you have to, like, to put up a tent. The framework of the old paradigms that have been present on Earth for a very long time are starting to wibble and wobble and wave in the wind. That's some nice W alliteration. And the only thing, once we remove the slats from the maze, is going to be like the light of love that connects people. There's such a cacophony going on right now. I could say so much. I'm gonna refrain from talking about the distraction energies on the world stage and what I make of them. I think that once it's passed a little bit, like maybe towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year, I will have a better time doing that, because right now I just want to like hold the course of being a light bearer and talking about things that can help people instead of illuminating everything that I see that's wrong, because that's not really productive. But I want to do it, and I can, and I have been on an internal level, but the point of it is to then release, right? Realize and release, and allow things to be true but not detrimental, and not any one fact, right? More heavily weighted than the next, to allow things to kind of coexist. And now I'm seeing somebody sieving for gold in a river, panning for gold in a river. So allowing all of the bogus to kind of sift through. The essential core truths will stand the test of time. Oof, that's a good message. That sent chills through my whole body. I have goosebumps now. The core fundamental truths that cannot be shaken won't be, and they actually can't be threatened. So there's another fear, I think, with certain levels of like leveling up spiritually, where it's like, well, I have all this insight and this wisdom
Turn
now.
left onto New Floyd Road.
But what if it could be taken from me? What if it could be disproven? It cannot be. It cannot be. And I was lying in my bed feeling shaken and considering certain things, and I asked for my ancestors. I was connecting with some spirit guides, but I wanted for my familial ancestors in my bloodline who are watching over me, who are connected to the other beings in my
about 12
family
miles,
tree.
turn left onto Mappa Avenue.
Oh my god, I need to turn the volume off on this, but I also need the directions, so, all right. Also, I'll feel very silly if you can't hear the audio. I mean, that's good if you can't hear it, but the map keeps interrupting me with the verbal directions. So I wanted for my ancestors to come through and give me a confirmation. What I was asking for is I was lying in my bed and I had a light on, and there was a wall sconce with the light. And I asked for there to be a confirmation in the energy around me that I could perceive with my physical eyes. Let me know that this shakeup is also divinely ordained, divinely scripted. That what I'm feeling and what I'm sifting through, even if I don't like it, even if it's not the way that I feel when I'm in my little sixth dimensional paradise, you know, with my pets and my art and like in my little safe castle in Pittsburgh, I have to come out of that sometimes. I'm a real person and I have many connections in the world, and it's important to be connected to the right people and stuff, but we're also born with lots of karmic connections for our growth and our expansion, and that is definitely the case with me and a lot of people that I'm in touch with on a regular basis. And so I asked for that, and immediately the light in my room flickered and dimmed, and then it got bright again, and I needed to see that. And I said, thank you for acknowledging my request to be reminded that this too, you know. And then it's not like my light was flickering all night. That was it just dimmed to acknowledge that I had requested to be reminded that even the parts of our journeys that we don't like sometimes have to move through us, and we have to handle them with the equal amount of grace and poise and understanding that we do when we're moving through positive illuminations. Not to say, again, with like the judgment of dualistic language, that this type of passage at the full moon in Aquarius isn't a positive passage. They're all neutral passages within the web of transformation and transmutation. There's only moving into further states of integration. Okay, another part that's important to this message that I've been talking about is, this is coming back to me from something I forgot to say in an earlier part of the message, where I was talking about just seeing things from a higher perspective, but that not actually helping when it comes to these like literal interactions, right? And so when I was processing later by myself in a meditative space, I was feeling into the root of the energies and why it felt so triggering to me. And just by nature of doing that, thinking in that way, connecting to the energy of other people in my life and how I feel in their presence when they say certain things, or how the energy shifts that I can pick up on, kind of giving some context to how they're feeling. All of that, when you reflect on it, is actually interacting with it and sorting it out in a very real way that affects the way that you're going to interact in the 3D. So there's something here that's important to acknowledge, with knowing that even if something isn't resolved person to person, face to face in a conversation, you can change the energy of dynamics just by changing the way that you personally feel about it, and just by giving it space.
At the next stop sign, turn left.
To unwind in your mind in a way that is outside of what anybody else needs to know. I mean, this is how we do remote healing, or like forgiveness of people who have abused us or wronged us from the past. You can do that forgiveness, and you can do that transmutation without their consent. You can do anything energetically without another person's consent if it is for the highest light and love of all people involved. And that's important, because I was kind of
at the stop sign,
feeling
turn left onto Mappa Avenue.
A little bit of desperation around like the loneliness of the perceived loneliness of my situation, and working through it. I was able to release all of that, because it's like smoothing out the dynamics to make everybody feel more comfortable, whether or not they know why, or like whether or not we're able to talk about where the discomfort came from. You're able to still release it when you think about it in that way. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to chapter 2 of my car ride ramble, wrapping that up. All right, another thing that I wanted to talk about was the concept of twin flame connections. I'm really hesitant to talk about this on the internet because I think it's super misunderstood, and I don't want to contribute to conversations about it without fully understanding it, because I feel like I'm going through certain things that are a result of one such connection. I think I'm naive and optimistic, but I'm also pretty shrewd when it comes to discernment, and I will never just buy into something without some framework for my own understanding. It's got to resonate with me on a very deep level. And so this was kind of an opposite thing, where I was a little bit hesitant to accept this. But the more that I got into experiencing it, the more incontestable I felt like it became, that this is what it was, this is what it is. Except with all of the distortion around how this topic is handled on the internet, it was like, is it? You know, and I think if it's true and real for you and your life, you won't have to be like, is this what it is? I think that it's pretty undeniable. That's what I've come to feel about my situation. And why? I can give some reasons. Why do I feel like it's incontestably my situation? Because this is a connection that was not planned. In a twin flame connection, there are typically two individuals who have some serious external differences that are easily identifiable. But at the deeper level of who they are and how they operate and what they want and how they think, they're actually almost identical. And there's one person, there's two people. The first person is a matrix twin who has entered this experience without any spiritual framework or contextualization. And then the other one is a spiritual twin who has completely created a framework for a spiritual understanding or a receptivity to a concept like a twin flame connection. And that, for me in my situation, is me. I've been deeply invested in my own spiritual awakening and understandings for half of my life now. And the next point would be, there's something else other than either of your separate individual wills keeping you in connection or conversation to the life of the other. There's forces beyond either of your control that are actively showing you and guiding you towards the other, because there is a purpose for you to meet and know each other. And that's unfolded for me slowly over the course of, you know, a little while now. I'm not going to say the exact time frame. And there's a lot of different signs, like I would call them synchronicities, that I get regarding the individual whom I'm connected to constantly. Whether or not I would want to think about him or focus on him, he's around, and it's not my choice. And it's a constant reminder of how it felt to meet this person. So for me, I felt what people describe in these connections as soul recognition. I felt that immediately. I felt that even before meeting him, just by looking at his name spelled out for whatever reason. But I also have a gift where I can tell, I can get psychic information from the written word. I don't even know how to put that into further like sense. Like, I get channeled information. I can get resonance off of words or off of names, even without meeting people. And so I already had like some desire to get to know this person. And then when I met them, it was like, I'm not gonna say it was like love at first sight. That's not what it was. It was like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Like, you've always been there. You're just there, and I'm just here. That's kind of what it was like. And my belief in the other person's experience is
in about 10 miles, turn left onto State Route 8.
Completely unfounded, completely unconfirmed. I have a lot of psychic insight into the experience of the other person, but there's something ethical here. There's also like some energetic consent. So whether or not I'm very in touch or very psychic about what might be happening with that person, it's not my business, nor is it my duty to posit or infer anything that's outside of what has been physically presented, if that makes sense. It's not permissible. It's not functional. If we really see it for what it is, the purpose of two people being in some type of connection like this, which, by the way, if you are, it's completely outside of you. It's not like one person or the other decided upon it. It's a collective decision that your souls make, and there's a purpose to it. And the purpose is to ignite a series of radical changes in the individual that I've been undergoing. And I know that the other person has, but I've never had any confirmation to that extent, that are supposed to propel you into a kind of alignment so that you're able to be healed. And I feel like before I met this person, I was pretty healed. I'd been working on healing, and I've had lots of things to heal from. And I'm very good at healing, to the point where I can heal others. I can help to heal others as I continue to heal myself, because as I move through my life, I generate with my awareness less and less karmic pitfalls to have to heal from. And the function of the connection for the growth of the other would not be doing its purpose if I were to try, because I'm not the God, I'm not the maker, I'm not in control any more than the other person, whether or not I have insight. And so to intervene in that person's process would be betraying the natural flow of revelations that the other individual is meant to have. The more that I have the inclination to involve myself or say something, or potentially read between the lines if I'm being offered like hints of acknowledgement that there is some type of acknowledgement of this connection existing, I'm guided to not acknowledge even a subtle acknowledgement from the other side, because the purpose of perhaps the healing of the other person is to have to come to terms with whatever needs to be conquered in order to understand themselves, and then beyond that understanding, say it in no type of like uncertain way. And to have to do that is requiring a lot of recalibration. So I'm talking about this because I think about it every day, and it's something that has changed me a lot, and it's something that helped me start recording videos and posting them on the YouTube channel, because I didn't even know at the time after I first met this person that this is what was happening. I didn't know for months, and but I started doing everything differently. I feel like I was like moved into this space of like, I shifted lanes. I'm in the car, so that's what my analogy I have. Like, I switched lanes. I moved into a fast lane, and I started moving at a different pace for a different reason. It was very funny, because before I would have told you like, yeah, I totally have my vision and my dreams. I know what I want to do. I know why I'm here. But if I look back on the version of myself that would have told you that, it was misted. It was frosted glass. The amount of clarity that I have downloaded since meeting this person, it's like dialed everything. Now I'm seeing a projector and somebody using the focus dial to make everything incredibly crisp. This is also how I felt when I got glasses for the first time, and I went to the eye doctor, and I was like, yeah, I guess this is how the world is supposed to look. And I didn't realize that a fuzzy edge had crept into every form in my vision. I just accepted it gradually. And the sharpening that has, I used that word in the reading yesterday too, didn't I? Things good or bad just sharpen you. All you can do in life, unless you decide to become dull and weighed down and burdened and like succumb to the challenges and the tests, to maintain your sovereignty and like your will, your conscious connection to your awareness and all of that. Everything only serves to bring you closer to that if you are positioned within your own truth. And again, I'm seeing, like, I always see this, but water rolling off of a duck's back. And also I'm hearing, I don't know, this is like some parable, like Native American thing, but it's like, be like a tree whose trunk is strong. And in any storm, it is only the branches that get all tossed around through any type of weather. And the leaves may fall, but the leaves are meant to grow again. The branches are meant to be thinner than the trunk. They're meant to be higher up. They're like the antenna. The leaves, the canopy, that's meant to be closer to the sun to receive the light. The trunk is the stasis. It doesn't move. It's the truth. It's the core. there's something about, another thing, okay, I'm gonna just pause, back up, continue. On the internet, people talk about twin flame connections as in like, tandem growth. And if you were afflicted with this sensation of like deep unrequited love, which I have been actually, but on a deeper level, I never ever have thought that it was unrequited, because I'm an energy reader and I have known since the beginning of this that it's a mutual feeling. I knew before the other person did that it was a mutual feeling, and I've had to watch them allow that to be recognized. And it's the hardest thing to feel like you want to, like, let me put it this way. If I've ever had a need for external validation, or for the desire for somebody to understand me, which I have, or somebody to see me for who I am, it's like all of a sudden this was the only person who I cared about seeing me or knowing me. And if only I could get this person to see me and know me, then I would feel that I'd be good. I'd be seen and I'd be known by the only person who it would matter to see and know me. And then for the rest of my life, I would have enough confidence and stability and happiness and purity in my belief in myself, because I would have gotten the validation from this person. But the myth around the twin flame is that it is a single soul that for a very long time has been split into two different paths of incarnational realities that have overlapped in almost everyone. I have lots of visions. Just the other night, I had a vision of, I get a lot of visions about myself and this person, but in a lot of these visions, we don't look like ourselves. In some of them we kind of do, but in a lot of them we don't. And it was like we were coming out of a burning building. We were basically both dying somehow, some horrible like wreckage of something, and we were coughing up soot. But we were like finding each other again and like coughing up all of this dark black crap together and purging out all of this stuff, coming back together. And it's like the feeling of coming together again and again and again. And there's a beautiful piece of art by Johannes Bourgeois. He's a choreographer, and he does like these kinetic dance moves with like these spinning discs, and the dancers are kind of like keeping their balance, but it's this performative dance where there's this guy and he's on this disc, and then they always keep coming back around to each other, right? But the mythology is that it's really just a mirror of yourself. So if I kind of flip that onto myself and just make this person like a cardboard cutout, like the whole world around me is a projection of my own inner world, and I live in a holographic reality, and my consciousness is mirrored in a dodecahedron.
At the next stop sign, turn left.
Forgot I was driving. If nothing else is real, right, except my own like it's all a projection, it's a hologram, holographic universe theory. And I see it for what it is, and it's an aspect. This situation is an externalized aspect of my own development and growth. It's this higher desire to finally approve of my own truth, independently validate and make amends with every broken piece inside of me that I suddenly realized I wanted this person to hold and accept, because we can't ask anybody to do that. And it's very interesting because people talk about polarity. There's something really interesting about how the dynamic
at the stop sign, turn left onto State Route 8.
The dynamic has been evolving as I've tried to see it that way. It's been very, very hard to keep my focus. I'm putting this out there so that this person understands how much I have. I'm not going to say that I've ever been inauthentic, but I'm a very good actress, and I don't talk about it, and I don't act like I'm going through it, because I'm going through it alone, and I'm protecting myself for that reason. But that doesn't mean that I'm not very much aware of what's happening. Okay, so
for about 35 miles, continue straight.
The purpose of my YouTube channel is to speak on other things right now. Maybe in the future I'll talk about this situation more. But when I say the way that it's changing, again, I only know my side of the story. I don't know how it's changing. However, there's a connection that allows me to feel into the other side of it. and witness it as if it is two wings of a butterfly. There's a symmetrical evolution taking place. And I do have access to both halves of it because I have access to my half of it. And they move in tandem like butterfly wings. They are symmetrical. And so it's interesting, okay? I'm just laughing at myself. Wanting so badly for that to be a real relationship in my life that was real, and not being able to do that because I understand how things work. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. Even if you know that they do want to do it, but they say that they can't, you still can't get in the way of that. And my only option was to address absolutely everything that I can from my end, which was translated into me like completely going through an evolution to make myself healthier and brighter and more whole for myself, not for this person. But because of the polarity of it and like what people call the runner and chaser dynamic, that's not literal. It is, but it's also just energetic. And what I talked about earlier with like, if you want to resolve something with somebody, you can do it in the 5th dimension. You don't have to go knock on their door. And so a lot of what I've been doing is trying to take my energy back to myself. The energies are interconnected, so I can't ever fully do this. And I also lend a lot of support in the energetic realm because I believe it's needed and I would like to provide it. And I'm capable of giving it. I have an overflowing cup. I'm very, very, very capable of giving supportive energy 24/7. But I have to make sure that I do have that fullness in order to be able to give. And the more I come back to that reminder of like only addressing my end, the more the alignment is stabilizing. And I don't think I'd be sharing this on the channel if I wasn't coming upon some type of, I don't want to say like a breakthrough, but it's felt. I'm not surprising the person that I'm talking about if they watch this. You're not surprised. I know that you know. I know that you feel it too. And I could also talk about Kundalini energy and sexual awakening and sexual energy because there's a lot that has changed for me. I shared yesterday that I've been celibate for over a year. That does not mean that I have not been having amazing orgasms. And I've been having a recalibration with my own sexual energy. And there's something that I really want to talk about, but that is not the right time. It's not the right time to share that. So I'm not going to share it, but people, I think that the Kundalini awakening is what makes a twin flame connection unmistakable. I've never, and this is so fascinating because this is a person that I've never had any physical intimacy with ever. But I've had the most, I don't know how to put it into words. I've never felt so connected to somebody even without physical intimacy, which is very weird, very strange. It defies all logic. It doesn't make any sense, especially when we think about the animalistic nature of bonding and sex and how when women have sex with somebody, they're bonded to them. You know, our hormones and our, the way that we're designed, right? Whereas like, what's it called? Vasopressin, the male hormone that creates bonding is not necessarily released during sex. They bond to their partners through other means. But this is beyond that because it's very, very spiritual. It's not just a physically based connection. So it's also important to remember that sexual energy is more than the physical experience of sexual experiences. Sexual energy, again, I feel like through this connection, just by knowing that this person exists and having a relationship to their essence, has been able to heal me sexually because of the way that I see myself, because of the way that I know that they see me, because of the way that they see themselves, and because of the way that I see them. This is very, very complicated, but it's actually not, because it all leads back to the path of a healed relationship to giving and receiving, which is really interesting. And also, again, with polarity. and masculine and feminine energy. If you can talk about certain, like, you know, hallmarks or qualifying characteristics of what could be called a twin flame connection. Hi, dear. Not you, Mutt Mutt, but you're a deer too. I think it's possible to define commonalities, like they typically ask two people to bridge pretty big gaps, whether they be this or that. Overcome judgment and stigmas too. Like, there are certain commonalities, but it's really hard to fully, like, blanket the experience, because I think that anybody who experiences this is going to be going through a very, very, very different experience. And that also highlights how interesting it is that thousands of people are having this experience, and that there are commonalities. Like, it's a both and thing. Every single one of those thousands of experiences are unique, completely unique, no two the same, and yet there are commonalities that differentiate it from a normal relationship. One of the reasons why I don't talk about it is because I don't believe that I can be an asset. I don't want to speak on things that I can't be an asset for and about, number one. And I don't think I can be helpful about it because I'm very much in it and I've been managing it. And I'm not going to lie, it's been one of the hardest, most insane, most intense things that I've ever been through. It has made me feel crazy, but like very, very illuminated and hopeful. And it's helped me see into, if it is a connected spiritual oversoul that the two souls are sharing, then there's a collective path, a shared path and a vision, and being able to see that as the other person allows us, our shared energy, to see it together is the most beautiful thing I could ever dream of. The most beautiful manifestation for myself that I could ever want. And that's why it's been a particularly hard weekend for me, because that path for me is so high vibrational and it's so transcendental that it exists in a world that doesn't exist right now. And getting from point A to point B might not be the easiest thing. It might not even happen. We live in a quantum reality. Things are always shifting based on the energetics of what we're holding, what we're allowing, how much we're getting out of the way to let the light shine on those pockets of fear. And I'm not actually fearful too often. I'm pretty brave and I'm pretty good at transmuting the fear. When I witness myself holding any amount of fear, whether or not it's like, oh, how am I gonna do that? I'm gonna take care of that. Like, I'm just like, I'll find a way. I always do. And I trust myself enough, and I trust my guides, and I trust the universe to know that I'm not ever doing that alone. And I let myself, not to be like reckless, but I have let myself get into some dire situations, not on purpose, but because I don't know what else to do, only to find that miracles do take place, because I'm meant to continue on and be supported and be able to do that, right? And sometimes we think we're not going to be provided for, and so we act out of fear preemptively when we are going to be provided for. And that's really hard to be able to let go and let the magical solutions flood in. And I'm very aligned with that higher vibrational path of what I would like my future to look like. I'm very aligned with it. And to be very aligned with it, and to be in that energy in the present moment, with the bulb of my flashlight in the present moment shining into that future, I'm aware of how different my trajectory feels next to people who are tracking. I see mine as tracking up to higher and higher dimensions, expanding, creating more of what we can feel and experience here in the third dimension, because it's a little bit more inclusive of a multi-dimensional experience. And yet they're level, they're flat, they're shooting forward, and that flat path of linear time is imploding. And I'm not able to track, it's, again, what I was talking about with the frustration of people projecting their ideals onto me of like, why don't you do this? I have an idea for you. Number one, it's insulting. I'm like, do you not think that I haven't considered and I just sound like an arrogant asshole when I get into that space. And I dropped that years ago. I don't do that anymore. I try not to do that anymore. If I do feel that way, I try to communicate it with a softness that acknowledges that whoever's coming to me with an idea that they think I have never thought about, that it's still a good idea, and I appreciate their input. Because I know that it's well-intentioned, and a lot of people don't consider the way that they come off or the way that I might feel receiving their suggestions, because they don't think about them as projections. They're confused by how I live and what I'm doing and how I feel. And so they want to help me. And I'm trying really hard to not gaslight myself away from my truth and not let the concern and the fear of others gaslight me away from my truth, and allow for all of this to just take space together and coexist. I'm actually getting washed with a wave of this energy that I was talking about in the video from yesterday with like seasickness. It makes me feel seasick to have I see myself as an octopus with like 8 different legs, and I'm like standing in so many different worlds at once, and I want to become more grounded in the wholeness of where's my true foundation? Where's my true resting point? It's in my healed energetic body, right? I think a lot of people who are just happy-go-lucky in the matrix world, they don't have open chakras. If they did, they would not feel good in that world. And so I continue to come back to the portal of my heart, the connection between my heart chakra and my root chakra, just trying to anchor in this stability, because it's unbelievable, like trying to anchor in this higher timeline is taking a lot of energetic work. I think I'm going to leave it at that, because this is a lot. This is a ton. I know that it is, because I'm like lifting off of the ground as I channel through this information, and I'm just rambling, and I don't really remember what I've been saying, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm not safe when I'm driving, because I'm really good at driving and I drive a lot and I'm very much focused on the road. But I'm also like in sort of a multi-consciousness space where I'm just driving on autopilot. And I'm moving through the Adirondacks now, so there's no worries. It's a long, long straight roads with nobody around, except for the deer, and I watch for the deer. Please keep in mind that when you listen to me talk about these things, they have activating, there's sequences of words that I say that are activating, and they might make you feel certain ways unbeknownst to the conscious mind, or they might create little seeds of time release information that don't resonate or make sense for a few days to follow. And I would also ask that anybody who does watch this, who might be thinking anything about it, or positing or inferring anything about me or my life or my personal affairs, to just reserve your judgment and back up off me. I don't want anybody's projection. I can't prevent it from being cast upon me. And if you choose to, I will transmute it for you. That's just who I am. You're welcome. But just be mindful, right? We're all part of the same quilt. And when we dislike the actions of others, we only hurt ourselves. So if you are looking at something, including me, that you don't like, or you don't like to listen to, or it doesn't make sense to you, then go focus on something that you do like. That's your choice. And I support you in doing that, because if I'm not somebody who inspires you or makes you feel illuminated, then I don't need your negative energy here. And I say that because it's just a measure of protection and a reminder. All right, this is going to be a random insertion into the video. But I added, basically whenever I find a song to put in a shorts video, I add it to a playlist and I listen to it, because I just like to have random playlists and stuff. And that song by Teddy Swims called Lose Control, I like that song, but I like it for one specific part and reason, and it's because of the vocal run that he does on the word control. I think it's so good. And I like practicing it because I want to have more vocal control with my runs. So I'm not going to film myself, but I'm going to do it. All right. I lose control when you're not next to me. So to talk about that point, or like to extrapolate, to elaborate on that a little bit more, it's like realizing the depth of yearning within me was only a reflection of how much I wanted and needed to reconnect with myself, to neutralize that yearning. And I know beyond reason, but without a shadow of a doubt, that the other person has experienced that same type of yearning, and that is equally a reflection of their desire, even if it's personified by me, to be reunited with their true self. And so like the more we stabilize within the individual development and growth, the more we neutralize the repelling or attracting polarities and just vibe. I see it as two particles that are just like in stasis, vibing. nice. It's nice to think about that because it feels good energetically. It feels really like clean and pure. And it's like there's a function for this being a phenomenon. It can radically alter the energy of like larger dynamics, and it creates a change in the energy for the people that are around people who are in connections like this. Like, for instance, if I'm with this person, I have an experience of like pausing time. It always feels like we connect in a space, if we do ever talk or see each other, that's like an outside space. Like, it's not really in the normal scope of how time is passing. They feel like these pockets out of time that are very loaded. Almost like how I feel in out-of-body experiences, where I feel like a lot happens in a short amount of time in the dream world. It's sort of like that. And I think that has to do with polarities as well, and like the amount of energy that is exchanged and the amount of information that is subliminally conveyed between two parties when their energies are so familiar with one another. Not even consciously, but just like at the core level. Hello. I'm back in the car with the mutt, and we're on our way from Vermont to New Hampshire now, about 3-hour drive. We got 2 hours left, and I'm thinking about, well, in particular, I'm thinking about cinematic depictions or like cartoon movies or shows of other types of beings that get to turn into a human, like little fairies who get to be a human, or an animal that turns into a human, or something that experiences the human experience, and how that's portrayed to us. A little bit random, I know, but just go with me. I feel like what we always end up seeing them experiencing is like how amazing it is to have this ability to have the 5 senses, to touch things. There's always like this gasp or breath of life with like, this is what it means. Or even like Ariel from The Little Mermaid turning into a human and being able to have the experience of going from her mermaid tail to having legs, walking on the land, and how much she wanted that, and how covetous the human experience is witnessed as from the other beings that are in our collective fictional memories and consciousness. But the fictions that pour out of us are very much kind of this drip, this collective drip of what we believe in and what we have access to, you know. Like, there's a lot that goes into, there's a lot of truth in sci-fi, you know, and like Star Trek and like the way that those things operate. But what I'm getting at here and what I'm thinking about is how a lot of people forget, because we have a incarnational amnesia. We don't like the way that it feels to be physical because it doesn't have the buoyancy of a unity consciousness. You don't have the ability to just, I mean, it's almost like surpassing instant manifestation, because what are you manifesting for? You know, you're just energy. But in higher dimensional realms where there's still form and like functions, it is an instant manifestation. And like the future of the earth existing in a higher dimensional, 5th dimensional plane, at least 5th dimensional plane or higher, it'll still be very much physical. We'll still be humans, but we'll have so much ease and so much lightness that is transcendent to the density that has been trying to lock us in to not be able to ascend past the lightness that we can return to, that is like true earth Gaia templates, you know, God's kingdom and like the natural world, and what can be created out of that energy, and reminding each individual person, not reminding, but allowing each individual person to remind themselves and reawaken to the fact that nobody is divorced from that. Everybody has a connection to that. And what that is all of source energy flowing through you, creating anything. Like, you are the conduit to creation. Instead of reality informing you and what happens to you, you become like a broadcast station and a beacon for what you would like to attract and create, because you are a pinpoint of the creator consciousness in physical manifested form. And so it's interesting because it's like in a physical 3D body, we feel like a lot of people feel lonely, or like they can't find what they want in their lives on earth. They are never satisfied, they are never happy. And there's this deep unconscious, but increasingly more consciousness with what we see with how, you know, people's conditions are, you know, in the collective on earth right now. The condition of the people are feeling lonely and unwell and insane and chaotic and uncertain. And there's this It's because there's this remembrance or this understanding that that's not the only way for us to be, and that we want to be in a different type of space. And the problem with sabotaging the experience of physical incarnation is that we're not meant to escape it. I mean, this is just to go like very deep about it. This is why some people choose to leave the earth plane, like, you know, willfully. They elect to leave the earth plane and terminate their incarnation prematurely because they think that that will return them to what it is that they're wanting to experience, or at the very least, it will put them out of the pain of being in this experience, which is the illusion of separation, because we've taken on physical particles in density that separate us from one another. And it's very painful. It's innately painful because the truth of the energy that gives you your consciousness is connected. And so I bring up the cartoon thing because you always see them sort of like relishing in the ability to experience things with the senses and be like, I can breathe, I can touch this soft puppy or this kitten, or I can taste things. And there's this beautiful decadence in having a physical body. Like, it's interesting. It's interesting to be in physical. And it's cool because it's like a game. It makes the experience of infinity categorized and chopped up and siftable and malleable, and your choice in how you handle it, and therefore the collective choice as more and more people kind of awaken to their sovereignty and their connection to, you know, an energy point that's outside of the false matrix realities that have kind of indoctrinated people into accepting separateness and fueling all of the systems that are reinforcing separateness. Once they start to realize that that too is a choice, then we can start to realize that it's not that we're trying to get back to anything outside of this world, but we're connecting, replacing all of like the pockets of division. Like yesterday I was talking about a vision that I had in my dream from the night prior around, it's not actually like dark and light, it's just removing obstacles that allow for the light to permeate everything. And there's a lot of like sneaky shadows right now, especially. It's interesting to see on the world stage how these things are kind of dancing about, trying to seek cover, to remain in their shadowed standpoint so that they do not have to face the illumination. That sounds really biblical. It's kind of like you can't run, you can't hide. It's just a matter of time, because enough people on the planet at this point in human history are feeling the call of the remembrance of the unity consciousness, which is the truth of energy and life force. And a lot of the reasons why we're not healthy and happy and thriving on the planet is because we're constantly being severed from our life force. We're sacrificing our life force to fuel a sub-unified field within Source Creator that is not the true pure expression of that energy. It's controlled and it's manipulated in the shadows, right, for the benefit of a few. And so I just like I bring up this like embracing of the physical form again, because I think a lot of people, particularly people who have a calling within, you know, their DNA and like their incarnation in this life is for awakening, and they're meant to be activated at some point throughout their life to be kind of a key player in holding up the tent, as it were. Like I think about you know, tent poles. You don't need one every foot. You only need one every, you know, 20 yards for the whole tent to be upright and erect and casting this, you know, layer of protection or shade. Or it's kind of a flawed metaphor because of the darkness thing, but it's like, you will, I believe, as I did, I had years of warring against my body and my physical vessel because I didn't like the way it felt, and I didn't feel good operating my body. Not to mention, I've endured a lot of, you know, traumas against my body where it feels like it's not a safe place to be. Like, where is the safe place to be on earth if my body isn't safe? And I think a lot of people go through things like that for the learning of reclaiming the relationship to the body and making it safe. How do you make it safe? Like my protection and my care of my body has become very, very important to me, because it's not just about like, you know, diet and exercise. It's much more than that. It's how I think. It's the thoughts, knowing that the thoughts are sustaining the body. Like I feed my body good thoughts, which sounds all woo-woo, but it's more or less like when we look at ourselves like in the mirror, we feel how we feel, and things feel out of alignment. If there's pain or if there's aspects of your physicality that you do not like, number one, look at where that's coming from, because why don't you like it? It's probably because it doesn't fit into some type of external type of, stigma around what beauty means or something. It's rarely that you yourself on your own in a vacuum wouldn't accept it. And if that is true, then it's why not. And then once you get through that, you understand, well, there's nothing that's irreparable from that standpoint. You can repair yourself and change yourself. A lot of us, we think about our gene codes and our gene keys and the way that we're formed as like, it is a program that unfolds within you, and you can't change it. You're locked into the way that your genes express themselves based on how you've been built and how you were conceived and who from you were conceived, and how you were born and how you're growing. But and I also believe that there's different kinds of humans on earth right now. This goes back to the 12 Essene tribes and like the seeding of humanity that we live in. But you can activate your genes to express themselves in different ways. This is like the notion of the light body and creating space within your physical vessel to experience transformational shifts via quantum expression of the energy that sustains your body. And by that I mean, like, if you think about entanglement from quantum physics, electrons only exist within superpositions and probabilities, and it's only until they're measured, they don't even exist anywhere until we observe them. And so they could be anything. It could be anything. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that you're sustained in the way that you are, that you're alive, and that we're collectively sustaining this reality and all the matter that comprises it, because it could be anything. And it can be anything, but then we start to examine, well, what are the laws that keep it as it is? What are the exact principles that are keeping it as it is if it could be anything? And this is what I think we're seeing break down on a micro to macro level. I personally, as an individual on the planet, have been breaking down a lot of the things that I, like, for example, I've been told for 15 years that I may or may not require knee surgery. I may or may not ever be able to ski the way that I used to when I was young. I have to do physical therapy, blah, blah, blah. And I've spent several years now, a couple years, doing what I would call like light healing, hands-on Reiki healing, and then medical intuitive removal of blocks that have been sustained in my physical body in my knees, manifesting in what doctors call chondromalacia, which is a degenerative meniscus condition. But I've been seeing that out of my physical constitution, and it's not as easy as thinking about the physical structures changing. There's a reason sustained by the emotional connection to the body and where we store emotions in our body that go into my ancestral matrix of how I've been passed down my embodiment, because that's where we get our form, right? We are created by these lineages of form and family systems and ancestry in these lineages. But that's where ancestral healing comes in. You can accept every aspect of your form, and then you, as the leading edge, the outermost descendant, the frontalmost descendant on Earth, you have just thousands and thousands of deceased ancestors. It just keeps going forever, right? But you have the embodiment in the flesh to be able to connect to it and therefore change and modify it. And I truly wish that I would have gone in regularly to get scans on my knees throughout the past 2 years when I've been doing this healing. And because I'm running through the woods. I'm trail running with sneakers on. I didn't think I'd be able to run again in my life. I'm like incredibly fit now, but I haven't done what the doctors ordered. I've not been doing my standard PT. I haven't been paying my copay $50. I've been just doing this for free on my living room floor, visualizing my blockages away. And it makes me think of a meme that I posted on one of my meme galleries on my blog, wordsmithoftheimperial.com, at one point, where it was like, nice cautionary tale, but I'm different. Nobody wants to hear or think that we can, there's tons of fear narratives that tell you to stay within the bounds of what we can and should do, because if you don't, something bad is going to happen. Like if I don't abide by the doctor's orders, and this is not me telling people to go against doctor's orders, okay? Because if you don't have the strong faith there, just build it in the background, until you're ready, I think, to become more of a self-healer. It's not for everybody, but I don't think a person who's not cut out for it or having, you know, the intuitive connection or the skills in your energy body and in your incarnational, you know, your simultaneous selves, like your soul. Not all souls have come here to be like that, but I think a large amount have, and a large amount of the ones that have are still lying dormant within that awareness of themselves. And they certainly have the ability to, but they haven't awoken the connection yet, the conscious connection to that truth of like self-healing and that radical modification of the body. And I was having just a gorgeous little happy lunch with my father and my stepmother today. And we were eating at this nice little place, and I was telling them about how I'm just obsessed with like brie and chocolate lately. I really love brie and chocolate. I always have like a wheel of brie in my fridge and just like dark chocolate, and I eat it. I love it. It's like a little snack, and or like a dessert. You don't have to have that much of it because it's really rich, really decadent food, and sort of a symbol of how I'm trying to transition a lot of my habits right now, like moderation. You know, I think overindulgence is very American, and it's also very kind of symbolic of filling the void. Like it's never enough. Like whether or not you're a drinker or a smoker or a binge eater or you play too many video games, like it's never enough. Nothing, or you have too much sex, right? People try to fill the void with all sorts of things. And there's something to be said for not needing anything. I mean, this is why from like a religious perspective, we fast. You free yourself of being governed by, you have to break the chain at some point, break the habit of the overindulgence, you know. And I mean, this kind of goes into different therapeutic methods of intervention. But Bashar, channeler Daryl Anka, channels Bashar. His money manifestation biggest hack is like, excuse me, your greatest asset when it comes to understanding your physical world, your physical incarnation, is being able to do way more with way less. And I think it applies to finances, but I also think it applies to, you know, ideas and like means of creation, like resources, right? Like materials. Like if I'm an artist, using really crappy stuff that like a child would use that you can buy in the, you know, at Target, or using like fine oil paints from Italy. The creative act and the output, it's the energy that moves through the person who's making. I could crush up rocks and put river water in them and make a pigment and have the ability to still produce artwork. And so the flow and the perception of lack or abundance is sort of a dial up, dial down thing that's contingent on your relationship to how you feel you're doing and how limited you are. So I think that, just going back to the brie and chocolate thing, there's this conversion out of overindulgence and like satiating our needs, but to a numbed out extent. Like that's what I think a lot of people are starting to realize is like, oh, this behavior, whatever it is, this is not sustainable. This is not actually making me happy. I'm numb. And I think that a lot of people think that they're happy because they're numb, so they're not feeling the dissatisfaction or the unhappiness. But because they don't see another way, and that's probably taken a long time to develop into that point, you know, especially with like social media now, a lot of us are numb to the actual present moment of our beingness. Like if we didn't have our phones and we all just had to go home and like fold our laundry and like stare at the wall, and there was no like inundation of everything that comes through the constant connection of the phones, like there would certainly be a void, I think, for a lot of people. And then there would be that sort of desperate seeking to fill it. So once we unplug, it's like you can connect back into the fact that like your physical body is incredibly resilient. It needs far less than you think it does. We don't have to eat tons and tons and tons of food. A lot of people are in patterns of overeating, and then, you know, their stomachs are expanded to accommodate these massive meals. But there's the difference between like European dieting and eating and consumption and American meals, is that they have much healthier populations, but they're still eating very rich food. It's just that there's portion control and stuff. And so I'm just thinking about, you know, just relishing in the goodness of actually being physical, but giving yourself everything you need and no more, and having that be exceedingly like a luxurious experience. It's really a reframing of what it means to be physical and freeing yourself of the fear of not having enough, because you're brainwashing yourself and convincing yourself, and therefore showing yourself by how you meet your needs that you have everything you need. You can get everything you need. When we think that we're in lack, we're oftentimes responding to a fear of something that has not crossed the threshold of our doorstep yet. We're just preemptively trying to prepare something that we don't actually need. And a lot of that comes from the programs that run through us around, you know, the fear, like what happened during the pandemic with the toilet paper. Nobody needed that much toilet paper. And I like, every time I there's this like little package that I have in this bookshelf, and every now and then I forget what it is, and then I'm like, what is this? And I open it. And it's these flimsy little itty bitty rolls of toilet paper that I ordered during the pandemic because I ran out of toilet paper. I did not go to the store and stock up on it because I was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I don't need it. I've got some. But then I ran out. I had to like, I think my uncle and my aunt sent me some toilet paper because they were like, we did stock up, but we've got you. But I ordered some on the internet from eBay, and it came from China, and it took 6 months to get to me, and it cost $69, and it was the smallest little rolls of toilet paper ever. And it was like, this is just such an iconic moment of like value and like the price tags that we put on things. And like, I'm never gonna get rid of it. I'm gonna use it in an art project at some point because it's hilarious. It's insane. It's a historical artifact at this point, and it cost me $69. I'm not gonna throw that out. Hope that everybody's doing well, and I hope that that helps. It's like a reframing device of a different way to relate to your physical body. Like, you're never at war with it. It's always your indicator. It's always asking for what it needs, but it's also showing you these pathways that you can honor or adjust, you know, these pathways of craving, these pathways of summoning, like your body calling you to give it what it needs. But there's also these trained responses of calling out for things that we don't actually need, that we can bring awareness to and heal. Like, a lot of the times what we need is just to breathe deeply through, in the realm of dialectical behavioral therapy, where you're restructuring the way that your mind actually thinks, you know, about your experience. It's distress tolerance. You're learning to tolerate subtle feelings of discomfort for not being reactive with your impulses, for not meeting all of your impulsive, addictive needs. And again, we forget that outside of what people would target and label as addict behavior or classical addiction, the energy cycles in the collective right now are a lot of them are based on addiction and like keeping people addicted, encouraging people subliminally to develop addictions, and then replacing those means to addiction with new products and new things and new ideas and to continue the cycle of reliance and interdependence on whatever it is, substance or not, you know, all of this stuff. And so yeah, I'm gonna stop the video because it's time to stop the video. Hi, good morning. I'm sure the video will be seamless if I choose to post these, but I'm on a different leg of my journey now. Yesterday I went from New Hampshire back to Vermont, and today I'm going from Vermont 8 hours all the way out to New York by Lake Erie, sort of, so gets me almost back to Pittsburgh, and on Sunday I go back to Pittsburgh. So lots of amazing shifts in the energy lately. Really, we're in Virgo season now, and I pulled a mini reading yesterday and I pulled one today, but I didn't post either of them. Oof, garage sale gold. I wish I had a U-Haul and $600 to spend there. Yeah, there's something amazing happening this fall I'm specifically transitioning here in Virgo season, and then we're gonna go to Libra season. Am I right about that? There might be a sign in between Virgo and Libra. It's a little early for me. No, there isn't. They're on the border with each other, but we need this grounded energy to anchor in the fieriness of Leo season. And it's almost like ashes returning to the earth, right? Like, everything is made use of. These things that are sort of floating in the ethers that we're unaware of, like, are we in a new chapter? Are we not? Did we start things? Did we close things out? That all becomes clear during this next month in Virgo season. because it's a harvest time, or we're edging ourselves into harvest time. And I'm just gonna take videos in the car while I'm driving with any stuff that comes into my mind, just like I was doing on my other drives. But I've had just like a remarkably just a deep and amazing trip to the Northeast, full of driving. And like before I went on this trip, I was thinking about really the effort that it was and how much I was gonna have to do, like just making sure I have everything that I need for my dog and everything, you know, and not really thinking about how it was gonna feel to go from place to place, aside from the driving. But there's something so amazing about being in a different state every day. And I'm such a road trip person. I really feel like I am. I do like flying for the most part, but there's something just amazing about feeling the miles pass you by in a vehicle. And that's been my week. So I'm just gonna start my 8-hour drive here. Gonna pull over, get some gas, some coffee, probably a coconut Red Bull, and some other desirable objects to keep me going throughout the drive. And then I will get into my deep thoughts, probably somewhere in the Adirondacks. Yes, it's been an intensely potent Lionsgate portal, and it feels like it's returning to the earth. Like we're like, what did we close out? What did we start? What did we initiate or not? And like it becomes clear during Virgo season because of the groundedness that it offers us. And it's also a fairly practical and resourceful energy and placement and sign. And there's wisdom, and it's like a sign of learning, and like I think getting things together to kind of ground and implement on a new level ahead of the harvest seasons of the fall. And the message that I have today that's on my mind the most, that I'm feeling and that I woke up feeling, is like we are appreciating our earthly vessel, so like the body, but appreciating it more as a true conduit between higher dimensional energy and earth energy. Like we are the living antenna on the surface of the earth, grounding higher vibrational energy into earth. And we're starting to view our bodies and our occupation on the surface of the earth as more functional in this cosmic way. It's sort of a paradox, because we're coming back to, you know, like interrupting false overlays of energy and unplugging from those to ground back into the natural meridians and energies of the earth. But it's taking us into a more, you know, galactically aligned space because of the way that it's like a heaven to earth conduit. Your physical human body becomes that conduit. So that's pretty cool. I definitely feel that because I've had so much time outside of the city to be reconnecting with earth energy and feeling expanded aurically. There's just been so much greenery around me, so many mountains, so many trees, you know, lakes, rivers. It's amazing. And it's been calling forth all of these, you know, natural parts of myself. Like it's so much easier to sync your nervous system with the true pulses of energy that come into our space, you know, given the coronal mass ejections and the solar activity that we've been experiencing. I've been finding it, you know, for the past few months, like a challenge, like needing to seek out time in nature to ground these energies and help my body expand the way that it wants to hold all of the new frequency light and all of that. And it's just like such a blessing to be able to have nice rural pastures to be able to do that in. Not to mention it was such a grassroots trip for me and where I come from. I'm just always like blown away when I come to Vermont after not being there for a while because it's so beautiful. So yeah, all good things. I've been car vlogging all week, and I'm just gonna tack this on to the end. I'm on my final leg of my journey, heading back to Pittsburgh, and I'm getting just new information, channeled messages and feelings and sensations in my own body, which my guidance like transfers right into messages for the collective about September and what it's gonna mean. And I've been personally guided to see each and every day like its own isolated capsule of magic. And when strung together, it can be a very transformational month. So imagining like a calendar laid out before you, and there's only so many weeks, you know, 4 in every month. But treating every single day, and this is hard to do with like real world obligations like work and planning and the things that we have to tend to the obligations of our lives. But in the micro perspective of how that all fits together, every single day can be like a step on a staircase that bridges us between August and October into a new space of grounding with Virgo energy, grounding a lot of the things that we do want to honor and anchor and amplify after Leo season, which is, you know, bolder moves. And I would say not necessarily even so much everything being so conscious in Leo season, because I feel like energy moves pretty quickly, especially this year because of the intensity of the Lionsgate portal and the fact that we've been in this week long, I think it's been 9 days of whiteouts on the Schumann resonance and experiencing the passage of time different. But basically it's giving us an opportunity to really assess what we dropped and what we'd like to continue dropping, what we'd like to continue moving into, and what level of success we're at with that now that we're starting to see some of the changes that we've been making reflecting a little bit more tangibly in the physical world, because a lot of these big changes that we've been undergoing have been largely internal, or at least they start internally and then we see their effects. So the groundedness is a blessing because it allows us to kind of walk the earth with the new seeds blooming alongside of us. And there's also, you know, older elements of previous manifestations that are ripe for harvest. So there's sort of like this layered effect of how we're experiencing the month of September. And the guidance that I've received is to treat it like one step at a time, a staircase. Every single day is essential to because it's
in
always...
about 10 miles, take exit 72 on the left onto I-279 south toward Pittsburgh.
Sorry, my GPS interrupted me. I don't know if the video will pick that up, but not form a connection to the conscious self, but honor it, like above everything. Like before you say anything to anybody when you wake up, say something to yourself, affirm something by yourself and to yourself that helps you for the rest of the day. Make it through anything that the day may bring to you. And then it's like a week by week thing. Like I firmly believe with some of the energy that's changing in the astrology incoming that I'll talk about in an upcoming reading, a longer form reading, the weeks in September will feel very distinct from one another. And so the way that we show up in the micro of like each and every day is going to evolve. And I kind of think that there's a little bit of a grounding for the first half of the month, and then more of an elevation for the second half, where we're coming back to the home of our bodies in a new space, whatever that means for you, however that may resonate for you, the home of our bodies in a new space. So relating to our physical embodiments in a new way. So it could be new practices physically, like self-care that you've picked up, and affirming them, you know, affirming your wellness with them each and every day, or continuing to distance yourself from things that at one point felt extremely habitual but don't actually serve your highest timeline. There's a lot of frayed pieces coming off the main cord that we're not fueling anymore, and sometimes those things take a minute or a second or, you know, some weeks or some time to dissolve from the physical reality, even if we've stopped fueling them energetically. In the energy of it, we can collapse those things instantaneously. But our minds and our egos also have this very reflexive, like a dead cat bounce. Like, wait, do I want to, you know, we're not always evolving and purifying purely linearly. The path may have some twists and turns and some kinks that can be moved through with a level of self-awareness that doesn't create any self-sabotage, because sometimes if you slip back just a little bit, you're not actually going backwards. You're gaining momentum for the forward progression by being reminded of why you don't want to do something anymore, or why you don't want to embody yourself in a certain way anymore. Because this time that we're at as a collective in humanity is a time of really understanding that even if all the people in your world or the people around you do not live with a conscious connection to themselves and they're sleepwalking through their lives and their lives are sort of unremarkable, that is a choice. It's just a choice that's been collectively normalized. And so the people, you know, in the collective who are inspired to deviate from that are being triggered into waking up to it and figuring out how they can do that right now. The summer of 2024 has been huge for that. So these little, you know, chunks of days, but then these larger blocks of weeks are gonna sort of mark our passage from this big, I don't want to call it a purge, but it is a purge of density from the energetic body and therefore the physical body. Like there's a lot of physical changes and physical clearings, like so many different ways that our bodies clear themselves and show us that they are changing. And I've been talking to multiple people this week, touching base with friends and family back up north around physical changes, and a lot of people are experiencing, you know, physical issues. And I'm reminding people that, you know, of course, go with your gut, go with your intuition, do as you're guided to do when it comes to medical attention, medical help, and medical counseling. But there are ways to, instead of, you know, adding a medication or adding anything, removing the things that we've come to be dependent on in many ways for whatever, like certain kinds of food that are heavily processed and low vibrational, or medicines that are man-made and different things like that. My advice always starts with the removal instead of the addition, in order to help your body hone into its natural healing modalities, because our bodies are self-healing machines. I mean, it's remarkable to think about how resilient the race of humankind has become to all of the environmental threats that we are faced with on a daily basis. So a purging of density. And then the Virgo energy this season is a little bit more for what I talked about before, with walking each and every day consciously along these little saplings, these little seedlings of desire. And I got a beautiful vision when I was driving about like 30 minutes ago, where it was like every new thought, every new bloom, it sort of percolates in your mind, and it drops in like an ink droplet, and it hits the ground, and it immediately turns into a pentacle-based thing, like the buffer between our divinely guided ideas and the things that make us feel sort of like juicy and delicious and like good, like this like luscious goodness is the energy that I'm connecting to. Those will automatically transform into something materially abundant that can pan out for you if you don't let any of your mental intervention and self-doubt and self-talk that is negative get in the way. And there are other things that are ready to be picked, things that we don't, and by that I mean like reaping the rewards for your previous efforts, many of which we didn't even realize we invested in when we really did. So I think there's like some very long-term things and some very new things kind of coming together for us to tend this beautiful garden.
In 2 miles, take exit 72 on the left onto I-279 south toward Pittsburgh.
I could turn this off at this point, but yeah, it's a good feeling. And make sure to, if this message resonates with you and you trust the information that I provide from a psychic intuitive level, I personally think that the first 2 weeks of September are very much for rest, recalibration, and rejuvenation, R&R. To be able to do that level up, like perhaps the 7 days, the 14 days of the last 2 weeks of September are larger steps. I'm seeing this beautiful spiral staircase made of white marble, and the spacing of these steps, they're incremental for the first 2 weeks. For the second 2 weeks, they are larger steps because we're ramping up again for the energies that we're going to be encountering during the final quarter of the year, which is sort of like a showdown. I don't even know how to put it. It's a wild energy that's floating in the ethers around Q4 of 2024. And it's going to be, I think, an important time to know what you're all about is, I think, a reasonable...
Use the middle lane to take exit 72 on the left onto I-279 south toward Pittsburgh.
I'm sorry about this. Go away. It's a reasonable enough way to put it. Like, what really do you hold true to? What can you bear to part with? What is actually not that important to you? And what is, and all of that. And so yeah, September is sort of like a preparatory energy for that. And that is my message today.